everything is happening for a purpose or for a reason. And when we look at it that way, then the compassion, acknowledgement, respect, the oneness is like, that's me. That's also me. It's like, I am everybody, like that's the unified field of consciousness. And
welcome to the Consciousness of the Way. I am your humble servant and seafood Taoist Master San Qing. I'll do that one more time. Welcome to the Consciousness of the Way. I'm your humble servant and seafood Taoist Master San Qing. And I have an incredible guest here today. I've been looking forward to this conversation for quite some time since he accepted my invitation. I want to welcome to the podcast Peter Hansen. He's an intuitive angelic channeler. And welcome, my dear friend.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's such a pleasure.
Yeah.
We just crossed ways, and found each other through the ethers, and everything is happening by divine timing. No question asked there. So I'm honored to be a part of your platform and your show and your audience as well.
Sharing my light. Yes, thank you. So why don't we start with a little bit about you and how you got here?
Yeah, well, that's a big question, right? It's like in this lifetime, coming into the human experience and being disconnected from source. But at an early age, knowing there was angelic and spiritual connection and community around me in the etheric, but not in the physical at the time. And being severed from that more and more through the human programming, that was the experience I had growing up in a very, matrixy environment, so to speak, religion, all that, is a very beautiful place to grow up, but still there wasn't that spiritual community and connection and support group that would have activated and planted those seeds in me. But it was by divine design, by my script, which was guiding me through my life, the experiences I had along the way. So long story made short is that, I went through these different phases of expansion throughout my life, having some spiritual breakthroughs along the way without fully recognizing what that meant. And that inner guidance, just guiding me, the higher self, the guides, continuously chiming in and gently pushing you in the right direction. Over time, learning, that nothing is happening by chance, actually. Where we in the human, we are operating in that victim mentality, believing that everybody's doing something to us and the world is a scary place. So really lifting and operating and living outside of that veil became more and more apparent over time. And I did go through several 4x4s. Like I had a near-death experience in my 20s where I went into a coma. I went to the other side for 10 days and came back. And that was a huge turning point in my spiritual journey and my mission and my purpose. So I came back with activated DNA, activated codes, activated light, and a new sense of meaning, what I needed to, search for, or new operating instructions, so to speak, moving forward. But there were some activations happening, really cosmic, angelic activations that was just paving the way for where I'm at today. It really kind of like, okay, now it's time you go this way, you know what I mean? Like almost like being catapulted, into or throwing into the black hole, so then I moved continents. I moved from Denmark, where I was, born and grew up, to United States, started in California, and went through kind of like the integration period, continued my spiritual growth, my curiosity, and seeking and activating, through the grids, through, masters I was connecting with, through self-taught, material, through meditation, through Kundalini yoga, through travels, all of that, and then eventually I reached the point where I started to embody it fully, and create that oneness connection. So it's not separate from me any longer. And that's when I stepped into doing it full time. I started actually assisting others and channeling that material through. And I did for several years do shows on the road, was a part of that. I call it circus a little bit, but that community, and it was actually really fun. And I worked with a lot of people. I learned a lot from that, before then later on, then getting offices and doing it that way, you know what I mean, and doing most of it online at this point, is like just immense levels of growth, getting hands-on experiences, assisting, and then just working with a variety of souls, and of course it's opening up floodgates of knowledge, that's just coming through my field because of that. And my consciousness is being assisted by assisting others just as much. That is something that many people don't really maybe embody or own fully. It's like, yes, we're assisting others, but we are assisting ourselves as much, because we are everything. We are the collective as well. So it's really a deeper level of activation and consciousness through our DNA, through the cells in our bodies, through our belief systems, through our matrix, so to speak, our divine matrix, and our divine script. So when we embody higher and higher levels of that consciousness, then we step into further and further, access, if that's the right way of saying it, and allowing that to just flow through us, and nothing is by chance. We're never in the wrong places at the wrong, we wouldn't be where we're at unless we could handle it, you know what I mean? And it's always benefiting us, so when we learn to really embody and really trust and have faith and navigate our daily life that way, then everything turns to bliss. Everything turns into an opportunity for growth, like it's like nothing can, it can maybe upset you temporarily, but it's like that's a challenge for growth as well. So really observing yourself and live through that lens, living through that consciousness. That's the magic of the spiritual ascension, and the reason why we are here, to reach that state, in my opinion, and I hope that's a good way of I know I might change or give more details each time I have an interview, because it's like, I continuously grow as well. I see things differently. I remember things differently. I get more information, more insights, and identify somewhat differently across the board along the way, as well as we embody more and more aspects of our divinity, so to speak.
Amen to that. Woo! That's really beautiful. It's beautiful watching, observing everyone's own self-realized moment, and we all have it. It's sort of like understanding, as you referred to the matrix quite a few times. People sort of don't realize they're misaligned until they realize they're misaligned. And then when they become aligned, it's the epiphany, the near-death experience, the holy shit, this is really how it is. And then, of course, as you mentioned, the veil is removed, and you speak. You had me at hello, but you speak so many incredible truth bombs, in my opinion, of an awakening and realizing that there is, zero separation. You are me, I am you. And so the illusion of the physicality is, presents itself as an identity crisis for the individual. Right. Then they turn it into a seeker. They become a seeker. They have their misalignment. They're realigned. They're like near death, out of body, saw grandma, heard a voice, had a paranormal experience. I want more. And, from a Taoist seeker's perspective, it's like you've been bitten by the spiritual dragon, and now you're seeking. You are on that path of returning to the true self, the true nature of all things, which is now. And so, you say so many incredible things that in alignment with, and it's the echoing effects of this, what a physicist would call the singular, the oneness, being now related to God, Buddha, universe, Tao. You will experience that. It's a frequency that is not of this electromagnetic spectrum. You have the distortion. From a Taoist, it's like, okay, this is cut from the mother's cloth. The primordial mother is the center point of all things. And from that perfection, you are cutting the cloth of perfection and creating the distortion, as my dear friend Martin, the Buddhist monk, would say, the dukkha, is the distortion. Your attention intention is crafting from light to wave to matter to particle a distorted reality that you now have to decipher and return back to your true self. It's like bringing all these pieces together, removing the veil, which I like to call the gateway, is really the imagination. That's that center point that we speak of. So within Taoism, it's like we are a bellows. Everything is contracting and expanding at the same time. You're all things and nothing at the same time. That chill that you and I just got right now, that's the aha mum. Oh, yeah, baby. And one more time for the oscillating effect. That energetic potential is part of the excitement of the seeker. So you get to craft that perfection, return it to the distortion, and it's all dissolved. And now all of a sudden, when people are in the presence of your resonance or the resonance that I will be cultivating, which is really just a mirroring effect of the mother. So when people are in our presence and we are the catalyst and conduit of this resonance, they remember. They come back. They go, holy moly, this is what I'm familiar with.
Mm-hmm.
And then all bets are off. Things are off to the races. That incredible state, which through your own admission, you're holding that resonance, holding that line. So for the seeker, for the audience, if someone is creating, which is the purpose of the very moment, this present moment is creation, that you're tailing it. You're the couture, fashionista that's creating these incredible expressions of the mother that can all bring everyone back to their return to their center. And so the attention intention creates from light to wave to matter to particle a realized energy potential. This is the electromagnetic spectrum we speak of. That energy potential has a vibration. That vibration has a frequency. That frequency, if met, oh, yes, it will be yours. Oh, yes, it will. And so all of a sudden now you're the master keeper creator of all this. And you're really, you identify as the now. You don't identify as Peter or San Qing.
No.
You identify as the now. And when you realize that, you're not asking for the hope, the help, the want. You're the dialogue to the
Well, you have access to it at all times. There's no need to memorize it. There's no need to, separate it. It's there because you're all of it. I just want to jump in and kind of.
I want you to. It's really important. I'll just finish with this, and then I want you to just expand on the whole thing. The most important part is to realize that there's a path there. People are dismissing the path. They're being separated from the truth, which is their truth is the only truth they need to be concerned with. The absolute truth is only yours. It's in the eyes of the beholder. It cannot be contorted or distorted, because if you come from biology, psychology, neurology, spirituality, whatever you want to call it, a belief system is very limited at best. It's only self-realized experiential moments where the experiencer can validate that it becomes true. Anyway, let's continue this.
No, I think that was really powerful what you just said. It comes back to, living in the present moment, living in the 0 point, living in, in the quantum field where there is no past and future, like there's no linearity, like it's non-linear. It's like, it's all source. It's all connected to everything at all times, and that goes for lifetimes, that goes for dimensions, it goes for consciousness, it's got for everything, for quota of light, of frequency, all of it. The entire universe, the sacred geometry of the universe is so massive and so beautiful and so simple at the same time. So it's just the mind, of course, that can't comprehend that we're navigating out of, and we're assisting with that collective shift, through our being, through our eyes, through our belief systems, through our internal matrices, and the one we break down along the way as we continuously expand beyond, the training wheels and and what's accessible and what's available and what's possible, the physics, all of it, like we expand, we start to co-create and create, and become the conscious creators that we actually always have been. Like you mentioned, like coming back to the root cause, the root seed, consciousness, source experiencing itself. And that is just so powerful and so beautiful and so magical. And of course, being in physical body, it comes with certain restrictions or challenges or opportunities. When we learn to look at it that way, having that physical feeling, not just being in the etheric, not just being in the light body, but actually having a physical vessel that we can utilize to feel the consequences of our thoughts, of our beliefs, of the light, whatever we channel through. So that's actually something people, they have no clue of. I think in general, that the gift there's within that, what I mean? It's not till we reach a more coherent, stage in our evolution or in our ascension process where we start to realize the beauty in everything. It's like everything is happening for a purpose, for a reason. And when we look at it that way, then the compassion, acknowledgement, respect, the oneness, it's like, that's me. That's also me. It's like, I am everybody, like that's the unified field of consciousness. And that's the beauty as well. We learn to tap into too, is that no, we don't need to know all the answers. They're accessible and available to us in that moment, exactly the way it's supposed to be when we learn to channel it and bring it in and trust. Because then there's no distortion in the field. It's just, we become a, open channel, allowing the soul star consciousness, the oversoul star consciousness to travel through, coming in through and being, embodied and channeled and what's the word I'm looking for here? Like translated, into words, through our vessel, And I know your path, but my path as well is that we might go in different frequencies or avenues or belief systems or upbringing or path we went down, which is unique for each one of us and beautiful. Not forgetting that, but really that also creates the environment for what is coming through us. You know what I mean? How it's being translated and deciphered, as it's coming in, these messages. And that's, it does fit into bigger puzzle, like we are two faces of the same coin or two sides of the same coin, part of the bigger puzzle. And we start realizing that and seeing the magic in that and truly feeling it, because it's not through the mind, it's through the heart, it's through your consciousness, your vibrations, your light body, your quota of consciousness, that we then navigate and feel and respond and communicate. Then we can feel so much more than the five senses. I can feel you differently. I can see much more of you that way, if we don't just look through those senses, and when we start to operate and share that through our teachings and through our, interactions, then it just takes us to a whole new level, and planting seeds along the way and showing by example. But again, it's like, there's a funny little aspect of that, is that the one we're teaching is actually a part of ourselves, so it goes full cycle, right? So it's like, we are collapsing or we are, detoxing the collective, but that's also our own, constructs that we created for our journey, right? So what we see, what we experience, is a direct reflection or mirror of what we are now working on within, so not operating out there, but actually operating from within, and allowing, just trusting and not trying to control anything, and just becoming fully present, if that makes sense.
Amen to that, brother. Yeah, it does. It becomes conceptual for most. Most important for me. I don't know whether I'm an '80s fan, right? So '80s is my bag, baby.
Okay.
And so Pepsi Challenge is, I'm a show me guy. So I'll take the Pepsi Challenge with anyone on this one. It's like, show me past the conception of words threaded together with an understanding, but not a knowing. Knowing is able to experience it for yourself, which is the most powerful realization for any Taoist seeker, because the Taoist seeker takes hope, turns it into a belief system, and then a knowing through the experiential now moment. And so many of the things that are sort of constructed today come from a language that is quite in its infancy in relation to the historical timeline of history. And furthermore, Peter and I are tapping into the now moment that is, there is no end or beginning. And so timelines are really irrelevant, yet access to information is instant. And that becomes the verifiable, self-evident realization for any seeker to turn into a knower. And so I agree with you. The subject of the electromagnetic spectrum, i.e., this material awareness that someone would identify as the 3-dimension. Again, I feel, I'm a little conflicted personality-wise with this, consciousness, conscious agency. There's an underlying, dialogue to separate the individual from the collective of the oneness, knowing that they're now. And so I'm very clear on using the verbiage of spiritual consciousness, because that is a true, in my opinion, realizing the now moment. So how a Taoist would seek that, because it sounds like most people would say, that sounds like woo-woo gobbledygook. And sure, it does, because, you and I can feel that register. When I say that, you feel the chill. The chill is an expansive moment and evidence of the primordial mother. Now, that chill that you experience through the visceral feeling that you're having in your body just before is something that I see and feel at the same time, or just see, not feel, whatever it is. But understanding and deciphering this present moment comes from the mastery of returning to who you are. And that's where I really value the infrastructure, the methods of ancient rituals that have been passed down for generation to generation within Taoist alchemy for hundreds of thousands of years. Now, I lean on my teachers. I channel over 171 different teachers that I work with on a second-by-second basis. And furthermore, my real mirrored effect mentor or realized reincarnation of my true self is Lao-Tzu. And so Lao-Tzu just brings me back to my center. And when I channel, it's really having a dialogue to access the monologue of the primordial mother, the now moment. And so with that self-realized evidence might be a spiritual new age, Akashic records, holds of Amente, source energy, universe. It all sounds really beautiful until otherwise noted. You know what you know, you don't know what you don't know. Most importantly, it sounds like a bunch of word salad until you can verify it for yourself. Not for Peter, not for me, but you, the seeker, the person watching this is on a journey to realize and return to their true self. And, I always tell people, once you dismiss someone else's belief system, you dismiss your own. There is 1,000,001 ways up the mountain. There is no right or wrong. Within Taoism, I think people get sort of caught up in this, well, isn't that good and bad? Well, no, it's yin and yang. Well, that's found in everything, and it's all things and nothing at the same time, returning back to the bellows, and now entering that center point, which is what we call the Wu Ji, which we then access the mother, the primordial mother, the Tao, which basically is the seed of all things. So from the void creates the light. The light is the seed within the womb of the primordial mother that creates all things. And we lean on a cycle that would be representative in the electromagnetic spectrum that is in the number 9. Just so happens to be the 9th is the highest number within our ancient practices that is reflected on conception to birth of human life. What a coincidence. And now within Taoism, that's also the creation of the cosmos, using the facets of the three pure ones, supreme purity, jade purity, highest purity, also teachers and mentors of mine. And this is where I love the overlap. I love the way that you have realized this through your angelic teachers and the channeling of direct source information that you bring into this present moment that validates your own viewpoint seated at the table. You sit at one end, I sit at the other. There's an orange in the middle of the table. You say tomato, I say tomato. It's still there. It's part of the same. It is only one. And I love that. I just love the way you're able to decipher your own knowing. And it has this echoing effect that when we stand here and we speak, the mirroring is this oscillating back and forth of this realization that it is now. And it's so powerful. That charge we got right now, woohoo! That is the now moment that everyone looks for. And you know you're there. But when you access the Wu Ji, the mother, it comes between that. Realizing that you're all things and nothing at the same time, you have to have that moment where you're Luke Skywalker heading towards the Death Star. You get that one shot. What does Eminem say? One shot, one real. Anyway, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You are able to access. Now, the expansion of that one shot becomes a glimpse to obtain what we call Wu Wei, which is effortless action, effortless effort, is the flow. And that's holding that resonance. Like you can obtain it and go, man, I had this most creative day. I felt so good. I got this done. And then you don't see it for 6 months. Or I'm forcing myself to create. I'm forcing myself to feel this way. And of course, you're absent of a pathway to remember that. And that's where most people get conflicted. They start it, they get a taste, and then they're unable to obtain it again. And that's where I lean into the electromagnetic potential of this material, that mastery, as you mentioned through your own admission, the feeling within this physical body is so critical to the experience's journey to realize and know. What are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. It's a mastery challenge that we can only achieve ourselves, through our own enlightenment and mission, and continual just search, and showing up, like prioritizing. It's not something we can control. It's outside of that realm, and that's the whole point. Is like that's like you mentioned too, that many that have peek into the divine, but then loses it because they're trying to hold on to it or try to control it, and it's not going to work that way. So it takes a lot of commitment. It's take 100%, commitment to the journey, to the mission, to the purpose, to beingness, allowing yourself to be all or nothing. You know what I mean? Like you really have to, like you mentioned too, like with channeling many masters, it's like it's a collective consciousness. It's not singular. Like Christianity, Christ consciousness, Yeshua, angelic ones too, is like it's collective consciousnesses. It's not just one working through. It's like it's a whole realm of guides and masters working through. And we start to embody and allowing that to flow through us and vibrate through us, and emanate through us. It's a light, it's a frequency, it's beyond, like you mentioned, beyond the masculine, beyond the feminine. It's like it's coming to unity consciousness. So we become all of it. You know what I mean? Not taking anything away from the teachings that searched or served a purpose at different levels of consciousness or time pockets, whatever we want to call it, throughout the ascension process, but in the divine matrix as that's unfolding. So no, I think it's really, and it's interesting because there's a big mirror. We both recognize that our level of connectiveness in the now. You know, how we're mirroring that back to each other. Like it is almost like we are, you know, saying it in different language, but it's like, it's the exact same, like you recognize, you know, it's that nowness is like nothing is happening outside of the now ever. It's all happening in the now. We realize that, you know what I mean? And when you live through that, you know, and you teach that and you embody that, then we're not searching from somewhere else, you know what I mean? We might find it useful to use certain materials, you know, to, you know, communicate that, but really it's all in the now. It's out in the source energy, in the sphere, you know, and in the sun, in the source, you know, whatever we want to call it, God. And it's just, we are part of that, you know what I mean? We are stewards of that, you know, and that is really, really beautiful. And it's like, we don't need any praise. We don't need any recognition. We, you know what I mean? We're not operating in that realm. We don't need to prove ourselves either. So there's not that faculty of weakness, or, you know what I mean? You know, trying to be good enough, all of that, you know, like there's no attitude, there's no ego around it. It's more like it's beyond that again, you know. We're not even entertaining those thought forms, you know, just allowing the message to not being altered with, but coming through as purely as, and, you know, clean and clear as possible, you know what I mean, at all times. And that makes it so simple when we realize that, come to reach that point, that it's really not up to us as the individual to make it better or to say the right words, or just being the pure channel, allowing that to come through. Then it's just immense light. And it also, it's not a permission slip necessarily, but it's like, it sends out a signal to the universe that you can, I guess, be trusted in one way, but you know, it's a safe portal or pathway, you know, that can be utilized by a collective consciousness and higher vibrational beings to work through us as well. And us being in a consciousness and in a mission purpose of recognizing and allowing that, you know, not from a human standpoint, but more like, you know, being honored by actually being utilized to that extent, you know, for that kind of work, you know. That's just, that becomes the prize, that becomes the, you know, the purpose, you know, and that becomes the reason for being it, you know what I mean? It's like, it's just, we know it's beyond us, and if we don't connect with the whole, then it's never going to happen, you know, in other words, you know. So the sooner we surrender and allow everything to be channeled through you, then that's when we see the big shift and big changes, you know. And we also see that reflection, we see that mirror in more and more aspects. We connect energetically, consciously, telepathically, you know, with other faces of our own being, like yourself, you know what I mean? Like other versions of ourselves doing similar work separately first, but then coming together and magnetizing together, you know, coming into unity. Similarly to, you know, the ascended masters we are channeling, you know, that's also us, that's also you. So embodying those different aspects and coming into the avatar state and starting to fully embody that, where then we go into the next stage, you know what I mean? So there's no separation. We just, we're clearing that separation. And that is just so magical. And of course, you know, this is a very high level conversation we're having here, you know, and everybody watching here, of course, is attracted for whatever reason, you know, and really happy to have everybody here. And the point being is too, I think, you know, just to, that's important to share, is that everything is kind of like in energy waves and frequencies, you know. There's photonic light coming in, there's gamma light coming in right now. It's very heavy right now, but you can either be in the center of the storm, or you can be in the outskirts and be more affected by it, you know. And I can talk for myself, and I can tell for you too, is that we are in the eye of the storm. So we are able to function and not be too upset by that or disturbed by that, because we've been out there, and you can say another part of us is out there, right? But we chose to, you know, have the majority of our consciousness in the eye of the storm, and observe it and experience it and share it from this point of view for a reason. So then recognizing these waves that we send out, you know, they will have a trickle effect, and it affects the entire universe. So that's how we're changing consciousnesses, we're changing worlds, we're changing realms, we're changing dimensions, just through our being, through our openness, through the purity of our hearts, the light coming through us. And that is just magical. And that's our purpose. And this is something that is not just for us, it's for everybody. And that is something that everybody will reach at their own Discord, like that's simply, we're part of the whole, we're all connected. So really beautiful. It's very interesting having this conversation with you today. I kind of want to share that, is that a lot of times there's so many more personal questions, in the interviews. And I really like the way we're doing it today, just for, shaking it up, and doing it differently. And I think that's really beautiful too, is that we can say that, we, as a spiritual seeker and spiritual teacher, we also many times create a identity around that. And some might protect that, or make staying within that bandwidth, or staying within that container, you know what I mean? But we outgrow that as well. And I think this today is a prime example of that, how when you are unhinged we can go anywhere. There's no fear of saying the wrong thing, there's no fear of not remembering, or it's just the purity coming through. There's a full recognition and connection, that's just like you mentioned too, with those flashes of energy. Just it's just source energy, it's like, it's beautiful. It's the golden sun filling up the space, it's like we are connected to everything. It's the sphere, it's the sacred geometry again, it's like, it's heaven on earth. It's just, there is no problems, because we're in the now. All the problems we can imagine is something imaginative that the mind creates or come up with just to get stimulated or whatever,
Yeah, I mean, it's a distortion, as my buddy Martin, the Buddhist monk, would say. It's dukkha, and it's not from something as simplistic as a macro to a micro, which is sort of very much an Eastern philosophy or understanding of more of a spiritual path, realizing that you are the mirroring effects of perfection, and you distort it due to your humanistic viewpoint. And as you become whole, as you return to who you really are, which is the now, all that becomes irrelevant. It doesn't even hold a candle. The frequency is a resonance that you hold that will basically dissolve any obstruction, any limitation, and you will create this, realized, serendipitous, synchronized truth. And then it's as simplistic as the bellows, and contracting and expanding, realizing that it's, when, as a Taoist, we always speak on it, when you're at your lowest, you're at your highest. And people are like, oh, I never thought about that like that. Oh, you mean your glass is half empty or full? Yeah. Oh, that's simple. Let's cut through all the BS and let's get right down to it. And so now let's, we're talking about channeling here today, Peter. Let's talk about that. When I first experienced this, because it sort of doesn't seem tangible for most people until you hold the resonance and you're channeling this, and they're like, what the f- are you talking about? They literally, it's like, okay, that's great, some fancy words, but I always remind them, but you're feeling it, you're digging it. And they're like, well, yeah, I am. I don't know what it is, but I am digging it. I am feeling whatever you're saying. Just like when I speak right now, we're feeling it through our physical bodies. This visceral feeling that we're experiencing now, we're in union. Our community is the now. Communion of the now, the unity that we're experiencing is this oscillating effect. So the fabric is so palpable. So when I move my hands like this, you feel it through your physical body, because that's the energetic potential that we speak of. And people are like, whoa, I've never felt that before. I'm like, Well, I'm going to show you some Harry Potter shit that's going to blow your mind. Because that's really what this is about, man. It's like that seeker part and that excitement that you get from the energetic potential is the very validation that you need to continue your path. And then that mirroring, as you always say, and you mentioned it before, from a Taoist, we talk about the teacher is the student is the teacher. Always. Never, ever, ever will you lose sight. And that charge we got again is another validation of, it doesn't matter, you know, the old expression when they go, I'll have whatever she's having. You know, it doesn't matter. The words become of no necessary or immediate deciphering of your intellect. You are feeling it. When you are feeling it, you don't need anything else. You can disperse and dismiss all the nonsense. And you know when you are oscillating and you're at your highest state of knowing from that feeling. And I think that that's really important for people to understand, that it starts there. But for me, you know, 30 years ago when I first channeled, I only channeled once. I was a novice, channeled once, channeled Latsu. My teacher had a stroke and went, I've been doing this 60 years. Some big buffoon. I was a bodybuilder, powerlifter at the time. I walk in there and it's like, some buffoon walks in here and you channel Latsu? And like the students were tripping out, you know, they got the sticks out with the marshmallows cooking from the admission of the yin and yang heat and oscillating. It's crazy. I mean, it happens every time. It just is what it is. That's a validation. And of course, I have a relationship that I enjoy that. Do I have to channel him, a more concentrated version of him through my physical body? No, I'm channeling him right now. I'm speaking to him right now, just as Peter is doing the same with his source information, his teachers. It's all happening now. Do I enjoy concentrating that and it giving someone a visceral kinesthetic, like somatic, like, holy crap, what is going on here? The presence is so overwhelming. I don't have to see it. I don't have to hear it. I can feel it. This is really all that it is. And so I notice, and this is from my own cultivation and my own teaching, through my own practices, there is a profound, like, presence of light that literally, like, beam me up, Scotty. It will come down through your physical body, saturated at a subatomic level. And you know where it's coming from. It ain't coming from below. It ain't coming from the side. It's coming down on you. And you're like, holy shit, there is something going on here. It's real. Yeah. And there's a distinct difference, like developing sort of sensory perception, which is what I call it, which I teach people: clairvoyance, mediumship, channeling, whatever you want to do, physical healing. Hey, let's get to it. You want to be a manifestor guru? We can do all the same. It's all the same. Yet it really comes down to that resonance. Now, for you, what was your journey in relation to your realization that you're really just tapping in at will? And then the further question will be, how do you teach people that?
Really great questions. You know, how did I tap in first? You know, like it's like it was through my own curiosity and my own journey, you know, along the way. And then the more higher frequency bandwidth you reach, you know, the more access you're getting and the more messages you then are able to decode. And it serves as affirmations at that time, where it also like breadcrumbs. So that really assisted me in finding out more about myself along the way, because there was aspects of me that was then communicating with me by me reaching a higher frequency and being able to communicate with my higher aspects, my higher self, and also with angelic assistance, you know, past lifetimes, all of that kind of coming into the now, into the unified field of consciousness. So then that allowed me to then experience all of that myself. And that part of the answer to your next question about how do I assist other people with doing that, of course, my own journey is assisting me with sharing my hands-on experiences. But then furthermore is that, you know, I am able to, as a clear channel, connect with the individual's higher self. And then create that communication, you know, and a mirroring effect, because it's really like they're speaking to a part of themselves that they not accustomed with, or don't feel fully comfortable with, or might not know at all, you know. So then planting seeds, and generally, you know, it's through frequencies, through vibration, is through you know, verbal advice and guidance, you know, as well, handling whatever they're going through at the moment, you know. That really, it just allows everything to come into coherence and into you know, into motion, you know, into movement, and that is where you mentioned too, with the teacher and the student, you know, dynamic, you know, like that's something then I, through my frequency and telepathically as well, then communicate and share and assist with, you know, with the clients. And it's funny because I'm gonna open my eyes again now because I just went off a little bit there.
For the audience,
you just shared before too.
I just want to let them know, it's like you're tapping in all the time. So you just took a pause a little bit, got a little bit more of a denser like transmission, that for all my students, disciples, 126ers, subscribers to this channel, every time I have a conversation, it's an exciting exercise in experience energetic potential. Right. So this conversation is an energized, real, it's a journey. It's a teaching moment for the experiencer just to witness this, because they're feeling it, which is really profound. Like the way your energy sort of anchors it, it's like hits it, it anchors in the heart, which I find really interesting.
How does that make you feel? I mean,
well, no, I mean, it's just normally, you know, for me, the energy anchors throughout my whole physical body, but yours specifically anchors in the heart, which is, of course, the center point. You know, if you go chasing any spiritual dragon realization, it's like that is the magnifier of this transmission. It's coming and being admitted from that center point, the vesica, what we call the Wu Ji. It's your decipher and your transmitter of this into this space and bringing everyone back to that center, which I think is beautiful, man. I love it.
Thank you. I mean, it's healing, you know, the heart, the love frequency, you know, connects everything. So that's where healing is found as well, you know. And of course, there's different levels of love, you know, or the perception of what love is, you know, and success and this and that, you know what I mean? So when we reach that purity where it's just pure, it's the vibrational bandwidth, right, that's coming in, you know, a frequency, like the pure tones coming in and then being channeled through us, and affecting everything we do, you know, physically, mentally, energetically, you know, telepathically, like, you know, where you were tapping into last time, you know, we changed chairs, you know. I was thinking that I was telepathically also kind of in the same bandwidth, you know what I mean? It's like, that's just another proof to me, is like we're connected, you know, and it's so beautiful. Like we're tapping into the same source frequency and material, because that's our truth. So we're sharing that truth through our being, you know what I mean? And I might be more heart-centered right now, serving, you know, one aspect of the collective. You might be, you know, a different aspect, you know, bringing more of the esoteric and, you know, so forth, you know. That's uniquely for you. That's your signature, you know. That's beautiful. And that might shift and change, because it usually does. We stay in one for a while, and then more galactic, or what this, that, you know what I mean? We want to change it. We want to experience it all, you know, and as long as we're in a physical body, you know, having this experience, you know, and we are now stepping into the golden age, you know, like everything is lined up for this, you know. So we won't be limited by, you know, the belief system of we can only, you know, live a certain age. We are in the process of transcending that, you know. So that will just give us a more, in this incarnation lifespan, to experience even more magic and more expansion, and everything leading up to this lifetime, you know, was preparing us for that, you know. That's my belief, you know. And just being at the forefront, in the front seat, you know, having this experience is just magical. You know, we wouldn't be here unless we were ready to handle it. We could handle it, you know, and had signed up for it, you know, and was chosen, you can say, but it's really like, it's a commitment, right? It's like, it's a beingness. So really appreciate us being here. It's like, that's another level of embodiment that's just such a treasure, you know, so beautiful, you know, like it's so deep. It's like when we're not focused on all the chatter, right? We're not focused on all the distortion. We focus on the beauty of the opportunity in the challenges as well. And like you mentioned so beautifully in another way, you know, like we're looking at everything as an opportunity. And then we can alchemize it. It's like turning lead into gold, you know, like it's really like living that way, observing ourselves, you know, having that creator experience, like we're seeing from point A to point B, not in a linear sense, but it's like there's all these different, you know, infinite versions of reality accessible. So instead of just choosing the one that's seeing through the five senses or, you know, presented through the mind, then it's like, hey, wait a minute, you know, what is the opposite of that? Or what is the, you know, there's all these other versions of reality and parallel realities and timelines of that person, of that situation, of that experience, you know, and then change it and shift it. And that just engaged those dormant powers that we held, you know, that we didn't know we had access to before, you know, like manifesting and being an active, present experiencer and creator, you know, in the moment. It's just, I'm speechless, you know, like you can't really put that into words, you know what I mean? I know you know that, and then that's the pure magic, you know. And that's, for me, it comes back into the heart, you know, into the love. It's like it can't get any purer than that, you know. It's just like, you know, like I'm yours in other ways, you know, like into the universe, you know, full commitment, full surrendering, you know, full acknowledgement of that, and fully showing up as being a part of that, and being my mission, you know. So it's something higher than myself, you know what I mean, when I say it through these words and this language, you know what I mean, because it really doesn't serve the purpose, you know what I mean. Like, so it's beyond, and that's something we also are in the process of, you know, collectively experiencing more and more, the telepathic community and also the feeling, you know, like more and more people. I noticed that with clients lately, especially this last week, I noticed several clients where them being able to feel other people's feelings much deeper than they were before. More, it was more like a, you know, boundaries and you know, protect themselves, you know, and take care of their own energy field. But now reaching a level of coherence and openness, where we can then tap into, there's all these other versions of them, and then find compassion that open up a frequency bandwidth for the healing and the alchemizing, you know. So seeing that firsthand in our students, you know, and so forth, you know, and of course already been experiencing and are experiencing that ourselves, and utilizing that, that's just like, oh my God, that feels so good, you know. It's like so magical. And that is what's going on in the collective right now. So anyone listening, you know, I just want to kind of put that out there, because it's, yeah, we can say, oh, you guys are great, you know, on your pedestals, whatever, you know, good for you. I just don't, but there's so much more to it, you know what I mean? We're doing the work, and we're not detached from the outer experience, you know what I mean? That is also us. So recognizing that, and then seeing that, and then of course the breadcrumbs that we are sharing, the seeds we are planting continuously through our work and our beingness, and a commitment, you know, to the source or the cause, you know, along the way, that just, it makes everything just function and start develop and expand, you know. So back to what I've been experiencing in the collective now, is that, you know, seeing different versions, and then don't get caught up in good and bad or separation any longer, because there's plenty of that in the media and the old matrix that's speaking really loud right now to slow down that process. But more and more people are now like pulling back and then going within, and then able to see through that veil, through those distortions, you know what I mean. And that just create this collective transformation, you know, that's happening right now, and rebirth, death and rebirth. And it's really, really just seeing creation powers at work, you know. It's just so magical and beautiful. Is that the way you kind of work with your clients as well? Like, you know, go through their everyday problems, or is it more of a different kind of format? Or
Well, first you start with the seed of your despair, which is the mental emotional content, which is really the dukkha. So on a grassroots level, anyone that starts on a Taoist path through remembrance within the reminding or remembering that I share with them to create that resonance, it starts with the mental emotional state. And so you master that quite quickly, realizing it's a distraction. Look, I like driving my side by side at 100 miles an hour in the desert. Chocolate, I eat chocolate bonbons, and I watch Netflix on the weekend. Does not distract from the present moment. That's irrelevant. The identity is transitory. That's the mistake. That's the distraction. That's the illusion. And so when you can embody that, as one of my teachers would remind me, when you accept, when you believe, when you know you are not of this body, what can harm you?
Mm-hmm.
Nothing. Not a thing. And furthermore, you brought back this mirroring effect that we were speaking of. And Jade Emperor, who also uses an incantation, which I use quite often, which just captures and gathers what we call the absorption of the riches, which is this chi, which is the mother, which is the fabric of what you would refer to, because you'd notioned a few quantum physics sort of models, the 0 point, the scalar wave, the entanglement is gathering that through the vehicle of the power of the spoken word, the ancient scripture. This is all fortified within what you mentioned, the field. It's now. And so the incantation I always use is a power abundant in its giving you will receive, unifying the body with the spirit with the energy, bringing heaven to earth, transcending all is one, one is all, revealing perfection manifest. That is your gift. That is your offering. That is your gift. That is your offering. That is your gift. That is your offering. And we sit with that. You're oscillating. I'm oscillating. We're getting high on the present moment. And we don't even have to look deeper into those words, but we know that it's real. And that is now.
Mm-hmm.
And, anyone that doesn't have reference to the energetic potential is nothing more than a breath away. I've never had anyone, I don't feel energy. I don't believe in energy. I'm not spiritual. I've never done this. I've never done that. I can activate their energetic potential within a breath. And they go, holy crap. That's sort of fundamentally reminding me of, this makes absolute sense. I experienced this, I experienced that. And then all of a sudden it comes back to, we're beyond WebMD. Now we realize, holy shit, that had nothing to do with any of this nonsense that I was propagating through the intellect in what I was a very narrow blinders, a narrow little gateway that was literally commandeering my attention. And so that is where we get down with it. So let's talk more about, you mentioned Kundalini. So, I've traveled the world, trained under a lot of people. I train a lot of people. I was moving in circles where at one point there was a guy by the name of John Chang, who was Magnus of Java. At the point in the 80s, was one of the only people that had ever been recorded or validated transmitting heat and burning things with his bare hands, doing things like pyrokinesis, telekinesis. And in those days, recording that stuff was a task. And so if you go referencing this guy, he would teach people what they call Muay Thai, which is a form of internal alchemy. It's not directly it's a derivative of a Taoist alchemy. I teach a different Taoist alchemy. I've only ever come across 3 people in my life that have had what I know to be a true Kundalini experience or an awakening. 2 of them levitate. Actually, 3 of them levitate. 2 of them were, masters that I found, one in Indonesia, one in China. And then, of course, one of the other levitator is one of my students. Now, I don't get excited by that stuff, so I don't gravitate to it. I don't need to levitate. I've got the method to teach you, but it's not my idea of a good time. Now, witnessing a physical, mental, emotional, spiritual healing, I get all warm and fuzzy inside. And so there is this activation on the internal energetic architecture that is realized for the seeker. And more commonly within today's spiritual journey, people are very familiar with Kundalini. They're not very familiar with Taoism, alchemy, even though it's the sexy stuff everyone's been pursuing, like, Raiders of the Lost Ark, dun, 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 they can't find it, and they get diluted, bastardized versions from certain talking heads over the last couple of decades that claim that they're Taoist masters. I'm not getting into the personality right now, but they've sold the world stage with a lot of this nonsense. Yet it doesn't, when you get down to something as simplistic as the periodic table, and then you apply it to the alchemizing of your energetic architecture within this physical flesh, all bets are off, my friend. When you start separating electric from magnetic, you're going to start doing crazy things. And they're considered supernatural. They're considered paranormal. They're considered, and for me, that's another day in the office. I love it. I enjoy it. I'm always excited like a giddy kid. The first time I ever witnessed a physical healing was 30 years ago. And it's the same for me every day. What does that relate to your path and your cultivation? There's a clear method for me. There's a clear method to help you maintain that resonance of the present moment. And it comes within your realizing that this energetic spectrum is your playground. And so once you turn it on and you realize you are not the body, but you are the maestro, oh yeah, baby. Now, and what's the purpose of this? People go, well, Jiffer, what's the purpose of all this kind of stuff? And I'm like, it's to help others to remember. And for me, I've always been guided by this sort of like obsession with Hollywood and superhumans and supernatural and superheroes. And so as a young boy, I went from powerlifting and bodybuilding from the early age of 10 through to when I was turned 20. Then I went from that to meditating for the first time to seeking, becoming an ordained priest in 2 lineages of Taoism and teaching people the last 30 years how to do it. It's that type of stuff that excites me. So, of course, from one of my dear friends, Tom Campbell, who's a physicist who is also headed up a lot of the out-of-body stuff out of a place called Monroe Institute that's been around for 60 years plus, that specializes out-of-body experiences. This is like a paranormal slither. It's like you take a misalignment and you get a realign, you go, aha, oh my goodness, I'll have more of that. Thank you. And so understanding how to go through these processes to help people, and there really is no right or wrong processes. I want people to really get this clear. It's like once you feel it, it's yours. That resonance is yours to be remembered. That resonance is yours to be applied. And so how is it for you? Because you did mention the Kundalini awakening, the experience. I truly believe for any seeker, it's very much a very important aspect of their own realization to awaken this infrastructure. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, my personal experience, I kind of felt like I stumbled into it maybe, but of course, everything is by divine design, so there was no accident there. Then by practicing it and being drawn to start practicing it at the time, the kriyas, the movements, the meditation aspects, the gongs, all of it, that assisted me in I would say within 6 months or something to really reach a level of finding my own voice again. So that assisted me with that, but then continuously been doing it for now at least 15 years. It assists me just with moving energy. It assists me really just kind of like you mentioned too, is like we there's no blueprint, right? It's like we create our own religion. So we figure out what, we could be doing Kundalini energy every day and be a teacher, and that's beautiful. I have a lot of respect for people who do that. But for me and for you as well, we kind of explore other avenues, and we allow different modalities to assist us in functioning, in moving energy and assisting, and also bringing consciousness from the outside maybe into that, because it all stems from within our, like you so beautifully kind of tapped into, the divine blueprint of the entire universe. Is like that is being, exemplified or displayed through these connections. You know what I mean? The Kundalini is the life force energy we learn to tap into, and allowing that to then fuel us. I mean, after been doing this for many years now too, I go hiking a couple times a week in the mountains, and I don't do it consciously anymore, meaning I automatically tap into Gaia, Mother Earth. I Kundalini, the energy just allow, and there's messages coming in, is clearing, detoxing my body, anything that needs to go out, and I get all these visions, but more so it's like my physical body is being energized like a battery, from that too. So it's like I don't even think about, if my physical body can do this or not. It's just zoop, like it's we tapped into that source energy. So that's really what my biggest takeaway is from the Kundalini practice. And I do it once a week usually, as well. Go to a studio and work there. But like I mentioned, because we create our own religion, or our own version of our own cocktail of frequencies and in the bigger puzzle, right? So we bring our consciousness with us wherever we go. We shine our light wherever we go. And people, depending where they're at, they will receive it in different ways, either as enlightenment, or either as a trigger, or either as but that's not about that. It's like we just show up. We don't, you know what I mean? So I really enjoy that aspect too, is like coming without any agenda, without any, expectations of my effect on other people, in a public setting like that, because that can also be triggering, as we go through the awakening process, to be around people who might have open wounds, or they're working on their stuff, being around people that a collective consciousness, or a lot of humans, you can say, that lives in separation and fear and fight and flight mode, when we are empath and we are going through that, self-mastery within, then that can be triggering or challenging, as we're going through that. So through the Kundalini work and the studies I've been doing myself and continuously do, that really, really just assisted me in of course, nurturing my frequency, because I work with a lot of people, so that helps me move the energy. I have my practices on a daily basis, my meditations on a daily basis, but that becomes a vital part. The same with the nature, the walks and so forth, and the beats as well. It's just a part of me, kind of like staying connected. It just keeps me balanced. And that's the commitment that I make on a daily basis. And I can't function without it. I wouldn't be able to maintain it unless I prioritize that. My work is not just one thing. My whole life is my work, so to speak. And when we start living like that, then we don't look at it like put on different hats, like now I'm over here, now I'm over there. But no, it's all the time. So when you treat it like that in that unified field, then it's just kind of like it comes into harmony. And then you're also able to then treat it as such. You can see, okay, is this working or is this not working? So then we attract these modalities that really assist us, because I don't have any desire to levitate either, to prove a point, but I know it's possible. I've seen it as well. And it just takes a different kinds of commitment, you know what I mean? Or going into different states of leaving the human body, and going into stasis, and live for hundreds of years, or, the spirit of the ascended master, is continuously being in that body and going through that process, like I it's serving a purpose, and it's teaching, humanity is teaching spiritual seekers, what's out there, and also creating bridges and portals and gateways, anchor points that we can tap into and we can draw from, so Kundalini, I think, is magical. And coming back to the voice part, living in the matrix, living in the third and the fourth dimension up prior to that point, I never really felt, I didn't like to hear myself sing or speaking up loud, speaking in public, all of that stuff, that all shifted. So there was no fear of because I'm speaking my truth now. Before I was speaking the human truth, the ego truth, the programming, what I thought I was supposed to be looking like or speaking like, or all of that, you know what I mean? And that was not true to me. It was just, it felt like Volapük, it felt like craziness to me, and it didn't resonate with me. And that was the reason why I had such a hard time then sharing that way, I guess, you know what I mean? So then when I reached that connection, and found my voice again, then everything just kind of clicked. And that assisted me in all the other areas as well. Because then we tapped into our soul star chakra, we're allowing everything to be balanced out, throughout our systems, and it's beyond the individual, it's beyond the human, and that there's many masters, you mentioned some, there's also Yogananda, there's many others, yoga masters, and there's kriyas, there's thousands of kriyas, we can learn, and they will find us when, they do different things, different, mudras, all of that stuff, it really, like, it's a scientific, approach, that it really just hardwired in essence, like activating the divine blueprint at the DNA and allow us to access things that wasn't accessible in the original setup with the 2 strands of DNA, So the meridians, the energy centers, the chakras coming into the light body, embodying it as one big chakra, one light, experiencing those aspects. And Kundalini helped me to get to that, absolutely. And that's why I maintain it still, and it really just helps me just center, as well. It's one of the many practices I do, modalities that just assist me on a daily basis. And of course, being in solitude, it's a huge one too as well. Like, we can be around people as much as we like to, but, to really connect with the inner, we're not searching for anyone else in essence, you know what I mean? To complete us. It's like, that's within. And that's how when we create that relationship, we nurture that relationship, and we achieve that relationship, then we will attract like-minded energies, people who are also doing the work, will also either master that or appreciate that, or search for that. And it comes back to everything is organic, everything is moving, everything is in the now as well. There's yes codes coming in. So we need to operate, and we need to be able to control our own energy to continuously ascend, because we turn into ships, light bodies, light ships that can then, move to different dimensions. We can time travel, we can do a lot of things that wasn't accessible before, and to do that safely without being torn apart, just to gain access to it, we need to be able to control ourselves, so that's dedication, it and the prioritization, it requires, so that is in essence, what the Kundalini is also teaching, in its own way. It's a magical way of tapping into that. And I notice Kundalini teaches more and more, actually, since been doing it for many years now. The new age is kind of catching up with them. So the young teacher coming out, they are spending much more time of talking our talk. You know what I mean? Like, they are tapping in, they're sharing, some organically, some from scriptures, but generally just connecting those realms together, the mind and the heart, and offering more of that guidance through their work. I noticed there's been a shift, and a very positive one. So it's not just the masters, who's completed it or mastered it, that's performing it today. I feel like there's many more that feel empowered to do it, and it is, of course, by divine time. Everything is happening for a reason, so when the same as, this is another funny thing, when we tap into the collective consciousness, a lot of times when we get big downloads, it could be from the galactics, it could be from the Syrians, it could be from the angelic, it could be from the Arcturians. A lot of times, because a lot of us are tapped in this community, we are getting the same message, and of course we are translating it in our own words, but it's like, it's funny because it's like we just pick something up and then we put it out there, and then like there's maybe 5 other people who share something similar, but it's not a threat, it's not a copycat. It's like, it's simply because we're receiving the same, you know, and that's a collective consciousness as well, because they're also part of you, you know. So that is really beautiful, and that's kind of coming back to the Kundalini teachers as well. By divine design, of course, there's a need for that kind of support for the collective at the moment. So then more teachers are needed, you know what I mean? More teachers, more students, you know. So it's just expanding exponentially, and that's really, really beautiful to witness. So there you have it.
Woo! Yeah, I mean, and it does. It comes right around. It's that mirroring effect.
Right.
The energetic potential is realized, and then you can create, manifest magic healing, you know. And I love teaching people all aspects of that, and really being the maestro of the 50 trillion cells that you identify as your physical form. Once you maestro that, then magical things take place. From a Tao seeker's perspective, you want to enjoy this player's experience as long as possible. To do that, you must embody high resonance, and that saturates the physical flesh, which maintains what we consider heaven on earth, a reflection of immortality for a transitory moment, which through the Taoist canons over thousands of years, we have recorded people that have lived 150, 250, 300, 500, 1,000 years old. Mm-hmm. So, you know, it really depends on, you know, are you distracted with your emotional content? You will burn out, your jing will expire because you're stuck in the material, instead of realizing that that's an anchor for this present moment. And when you do that, you just water this anchor and keep it nourished so it maintains your experience. And you know, this is part of fundamentally how people get confused within Buddhism and Taoism, because they're fundamentally different. But you know, people go, oh no, they're the same. It's an Eastern philosophy or religion, a belief system. I'm like, okay, well, let's start with this. A Buddhist looks at life like a pile of dirt covered in diamonds. A rip off another diamond, they're looking for more dirt. Straight from the words of my dear friend, the Buddhist monk. He's looking for distortion. He doesn't care about the energetics. He wants to sit there, be non-dualist, non-centric, and I'm just looking for distortion. I just want to be. He actually, his own words are, I don't like feeling energy. I mean, it's not my. I don't want to do it. And it's funny, but you know, when you look at it from a Taoist perspective, it's a life is like a pile of diamonds covered in dirt. We just dust off some more dirt and find another diamond, and that comes back to, well, people say, "Well, how are you today?" And my response is always the same: it's good to be me. You know, it never ever falters or alters the reality. And you know, once you nurture this stuff, all of a sudden the strappings and the limitations of this material are limitless. So you change it however you want. You know, it's like that's where you get the anomaly, this weird example where grandpa was 115 and he drank a bottle of whiskey and smoked a cigar 5 times a week and ate fatty foods and did that. How is that possible? Because he stumbled across the secret source almost instantaneously. So he's not subject to the trappings and the limitations of what this is. Right. He's limitless. And so he's just embodying and enjoying the present moment. And with that, he's doing things that are considered to be supernatural from a physicality perspective. This is the very evidence. If you ask anyone that lives a long life, a full life, a life that is not subject to disease and sickness that really just slow you down, to count down the second to minute to hour of your demise, you will realize that they transition effortlessly through the breath in and the breath out, They go to sleep one day and they're already returned to the heavens back on earth as a divine source of pure consciousness. And so that is generally how you get that secret source, how you stay there. It's like, as you said, you're staying there for a Taoist, it's Wu Wei. And so that flow, the more and more you present that resonance to your now moment, it becomes an autonomous, effortless thing. You're not, as you said, Peter, you're not consciously thinking about it. It just is. And so that energetic potential is now your default soundtrack. That's your reality, not the nonsense that is constructed to distract you, because that's the lie. The truth is this present moment. And then the energetic potential is how you realize it and you validate it for yourself. If you're having a moment of doubt, if you're having a moment of being perpetrated by the intellect to distort your reality, you can feel it and go, oh, wow, okay, I need nothing. I am now. And that becomes this symbiotic thing that just expands on itself. And so you would probably, for the years that you've been doing this, as have I, what I find is really amazing about this cultivation is something that, I may have started, over 30 years ago, that might have taken me in a timeline certain minutes and hours to perform this type of cultivational practice. It's now. So, it's like people are like, whoa. And when I teach people this stuff, they go, this is crazy, man. It's like, because it's like, I call it the Mr. Miyagi effect, where people are like, I'm not doing anything. This is ridiculous. You know what, old man, I don't want to wax your floors and clean your cars anymore and sand your fence and do whatever. I'm done. And then it's like, Daniel-san, wax on, wax on. Oh, because I call it the Pinto effect. You've been driving around in a Pinto. I've been teaching you these cultivational practices where you just, through the emission of most students that literally spend 5 minutes, I want you to measure your spiritual journey within the first time you're given any task. You should not be like, I want you to sit there and, in a couple of months, we'll come back and revisit what you've learned and how no. No. I will give you an exercise that you can measure your growth within the first experience you've ever had with me, because that's how it should be. You shouldn't. The blind faith is an interesting concept, but to generate faith that turns into a belief system that becomes a knowing is experiential. You must experience it. And so if you're just sitting there and so a lot of my students are like, okay, this is nuts. You've just given me this exercise. I've been doing this for the last 6 months. This is what we call the Pinto effect. You're driving down the highway. I tell you to pull over in your little dinky Pinto. Now go to the hood. Now open the hood. And they go, oh, it's a Lamborghini engine. Where did that come from? It's like, it's been there the whole time. And now you have the skill and the awareness to apply it. And now it's realized for you. And now this is just another, as you would put a tool in your toolbox of awareness of the now moment. And it freaks people out because, from a scientific perspective, parapsychologist perspective, we call this precognition. So people are, I can't believe it. I can already tell if someone's experiencing a transmission from you within your teaching, within your interaction. What happens with me is very similar. So when I teach someone something, and Latsu is using me, commandeering my physical flesh as a vehicle to transmit this within this space, that's all it is. What happens is people are like, holy shit, before you say something, I'm viscerally experiencing this through my body, and then you call in the energy of the sun, and it's like, holy shit, I'm feeling it through every cell. Oh, damn straight you are.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's that multitasking, that now moment is what Qigong is really powerful for. That means internal power, and developing the Ni-Dan, which is the internal alchemy, is how you obtain that. And you're, as you would say through your own terminology, I'm operating in all dimensions at once. People are like, what? How are you doing that? Oh, trust me, you know. And when you're there, anything's possible. Anything is possible, and it happens now. And that's a cultivational practice that takes, you know, a mastery of yourself, which is a mastery of all things, which is a mastery of the now moment, which is really that echoing effect. The gift is your offering. The gift is your offering. The offering is your gift. The gift is your offering. Because when you realize that, you're in servitude. When you're in servitude, your selfless act is the now moment. You're not thinking about it. You're not going, oh, let me see. Should I help this person out? Do I help this person who's fell on the road, help them pick them up? You know, you are now. You instantly tap into empathy. That is the gem that comes from the human experience. That resonance that you get, and you are able to tap into that, and that raises, as you would put it, Peter, the conscious collective. And that empathy is the awareness, that chag we're getting right now, that aha, baby. That is it. And that's what makes us so incredibly humbled and grateful to be able to experience that within this material.
Yeah, it's massive.
Okay, one last thing. So I want to let all my students, 126's disciples, subscribers, go out and find Peter's material. I'm going to have all your social media under this podcast, where to find you, to do sessions with you, training, healings, all that kind of good stuff. In closing, last question, what's your definition of spiritual consciousness? Go.
Oneness.
Beautiful. I love it. Love it. I mean, hundreds of podcasts, I've never got the same answer. And as it should be, it's now.
We can make it very elaborate and combine it with many other things, but that's what came into mind. You know, that's the first thing that's just, you know.
Bam. Love it, my friend. I'm so grateful that you've been here. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us today. And I'm very grateful for this present moment. Thank you again. Thank you. I want to thank the universe for bringing you into my life. I want to thank the audience for spending their time with us today. I am your humble servant and Sifu, Taoist Master San Qing, and I'll see you on the next one, guys.